Help support Name Explain by liking this video, leaving a comment and subscribing to the channel. We have looked into settlement suffixes in the past. In fact, we have a whole video about them. There are many elements of language that reappear across words, things like ville and shire and chester and opolis, just to name a few. The one we're going to look at today, however, is the ever-present grad suffix. And of course, as the title of this video suggests, we'll be taking a deep look at one former grad city specifically. So what does this suffix even mean? Well, like a lot of these suffixes, it simply means things like town/city, originally coming from the Old Church Slavonic gladu, and since this inception of the term, the suffix of grad has spread across the planet. Well, when I say planet, I guess I mean specifically the Slavic speaking parts of the planet, as this word element is Slavic in origin. You can see places with grad in their name in the nations of Russia, Bulgaria, Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, Slovenia, North Macedonia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. There's also some in Albania. However, what's interesting about the Albanian language is that it isn't actually a Slavic language. In fact, it's believed that Albanian is a language that is unrelated to any other language on our planet, stemming from a unique branch of the Proto-Indo-European languages, which is seriously fascinating. If we know what the latter part of these names that end with grad mean, then what about the first part of these names? Well, from looking through a list of all the places that have grad in their name, there seems to be one of two things that first part can be. They're either adjectives, or at least descriptive, or nouns. The adjective names are usually put in places to describe where or what the grad is like. A lot of the time, these grad places with descriptive names pop up in a lot of places. I mean, it makes sense that this would be the case, as like I said, they're there to describe the town, and a lot of these grad places share similarities. In example, we have the places of Novigrad in the countries of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Serbia, and Slovenia. This name of Novigrad means new town, so like I said, it would make sense for a lot of places to have this name, as at one point they would have all been new towns. And on the other side of this coin, we have places like Staligrad in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Montenegro, North Macedonia, Serbia, and Slovenia. This of course means old town, so I guess these places were called Novigrad too once, or had different names entirely. It'd be pretty odd if you founded a brand new settlement and called it Old Town straight away. Maybe they were just called Grad to begin with, which might sound a little strange. However, in Slovenia we have the village of Grad in the municipality of Grad, so this suffix can be a name unto itself. In regards to other towns that names come from singular adjectives, there's also Topolograd in Bulgaria, which means popular town. I guess they all wear leather jackets and sunglasses there. Is that still the stereotype for popular kids? I don't know anymore. We also have the Gornji-grads of Slovenia, Croatia, and Serbia, which means upper town, and the Donji-grads of Croatia and Serbia, which mean lower town. And one at the end of these names, we have the settlements of Gladak and Gladek, which both mean small town, and these can be found in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Montenegro, Serbia, Slovenia, Albania, and North Macedonia. There's even a Gradek in Austria. Well, sort of. The Austrian city of Graz is called Gladek in Slovene. The last of the names that have just one adjective at the start are Biograd in Croatia and Beograd in Serbia. Both mean white town. If you're an English speaker like myself, you'll most likely know the Serbian city of Beograd by its English name of Belgrade, the nation's capital. And fun fact, this makes it the largest city on our planet with grad in its name. And like I said, there's a couple names that don't consist of a single adjective but still describe where these places are. These are Podgrad, which are across Slovenia, which means below the castle town, and Pogradek in Albania, which means below the small town. Now, on the whole, these seem to be most the grad places with an adjective or descriptive name, though I'm sure there are more, so leave the ones I missed out down below. But like I said, there's also the ones that start with a noun. The reasons these start with a noun is simply because on the whole they are named after a specific person who played a large role in these areas, though they aren't always named after specific people, with Zatoglad in Bulgaria, which means gold town, Dravograd in Slovenia, named after the Drava river, and Filmski Grad, a part of Belgrade where a lot of Serbian film production takes place. On the whole, there's usually only one of each of these noun grad names, unlike the adjective kind, and this too makes sense as the people they're named after are usually only of significance to those places. However, we have Dimitrievgrad, the name of three places, one in Bulgaria, Russia, and Serbia. All three of these places are named after the same person, Georgy Dimitrov. He was the first communist leader of Bulgaria, so it makes sense for the Bulgarian city to be named after him. But why are there also cities in Russia and Serbia named after him? Well, like I said, he was a communist leader, and those Russians loved themselves some communism. The Russian Dimitrov Grad was originally named Melekes yes, but had its name changed to what it is now on the posthumous 90th birthday of Dimitrov in honor of his rule of Bulgaria. And it seems the Serbian town is named after him too, as he was liked in the nation for his efforts to form a union between his Bulgaria and the other former Yugoslav nations. Also in Bulgaria we have Asenovgrad, named after the former Tsar of Bulgaria Ivan Asen II, Blagovograd, named after Dmitry Blagov, the founder of Bulgarian socialism, and Ivolograd, named after Ivolo of Bulgaria, a peasant rebel leader who went on to become Tsar of Bulgaria. Meanwhile, over in Montenegro we have Danilovgrad, named after former ruling prince of the nation Danilo I, and in Bosnia and Herzegovina we have Mikovicgrad, named after the alias of Peter I of Serbia. The alias he took on was Peter Mukovic, and used this name to take part in the Herzegovinian uprising against the Ottoman Empire. And in Russia we have Kirovgrad, named after Sergei Kirov, close friend of Uncle Joe and Bolshevik party member. And of course there's Kaliningrad, the name of not only a Russian city but a whole Russian enclave between Poland and Lithuania, named after Mikhail Kalinin, who was another Bolshevik revolutionary. I just need to take a moment to apologise for my pronunciation in this video. I'm so sorry to any Slavic speaker. Please feel free to correct me down below and tell me how awful I am. Now, apologies for how quickly I breezed over some of these places. While I want this video to be a deeper look into the grad suffix, I also want to take a deeper look into perhaps one of the most popular and renowned grad cities, which interestingly enough doesn't even have grad in its name anymore. Of course, I'm talking about the city of St. Petersburg. While now known as St. Petersburg, this city has had a grad in its name, twice in fact. Throughout the city's history it has gone through 3 name changes, but what are these names and why did it change so often? The city was officially founded in 1703 by Peter the Great, when he seized the land in a war against Sweden. The city was built on swampland, and of course with its location on the planet it means it can get cold, like really cold. However, this didn't stop Peter the Great, and by 1712 the city became Russia's capital, with many people moving to the city to start a new life. At its founding the city was called Sankt Peterburg, which translates into St. Petersburg, the name as it is now minus an S. Now what's interesting about this is I thought this name was Peter the Great being somewhat arrogant, not only dubbing himself a saint but also naming a city after himself. However, while he was called Peter and this city was also called Peter, they weren't one and the same Peter. Peter the Great named Sankt Peterburg after St. Peter, which now saying out loud sounds really obvious. I'm stupid. But on the whole it seems to be a coincidence that they're both named Peter, though he could have also alluded to his own name too. The city went on to have its first name change in 1914, in the outbreak of the First World War. This is because on the Eastern Front when war broke out between Germany and Russia in August 1914, it was thought that the initial name of Sankt Peterburg sounded too German, and the then ruler of Russia, Tsar Nicholas II, wanted the name to change to remove all accusation with it sounding German, as the Germans were the enemies now. It was changed from Sankt Peterburg to Petrograd, which the name formed a more traditional Slavic word element, and of course it's the first time this city had a grad in its name. And it was in this time that Petrograd started to lose its power, as by 1918 the Russian Revolution had taken place. The Tsar was gone and the Bolsheviks were now in power. It was in 1918 that it was decided that St. Petersburg would no longer be the nation's capital. The reason the capital moved from St. Petersburg to Moscow was due to Lenin assuming that due to its location St. Petersburg would be lost to the Germans in the First World War, so the government retreated to the more inland Moscow. Of course, however, St. Petersburg was never overtaken by the Germans. However, Moscow has stayed as the nation's capital to this day, with St. Petersburg, or Petrograd as I should say in this moment of time, still being considered Russia's second city. The city took on the name Petrograd in 1918, but would only have that name for around 6 years, as in 1924, the leader of the Russian Revolution and the founder of the Soviet Union, Vladimir Lenin, died. This death shocked all of Russia. Reportedly, when Kalinin, who we mentioned earlier in regards to Kaliningrad, announced the death, he was hardly able to speak. At his funeral, the bands wept for his death, and of course his preserved body can still be seen in his mausoleum to this day. It was in this year that Lenin died that Petrograd went under its next name change, becoming Leningrad in honor of their lost comrade. While it's easy to understand as to why they would name a city in Lenin's honor, why St. Petersburg and not say Moscow in example? Lenin was the one who moved the capital from St. Petersburg to Moscow. Surely it would have made more sense to name Moscow Leningrad. Everywhere I look it simply says it was named in his honor, but not why this city specifically. If anyone does know why, please tell me down below. It was while the city was named Leningrad that the surrounding area around it was established into an oblast, with oblast being the name that the regions of Russia are split into. This oblast was named the Leningrad Oblast as it contained the city of Leningrad, and even though Leningrad the city still no longer bears this name, the oblast to this day is still called the Leningrad Oblast, and of course many streets and places in modern St. Petersburg and Russia as a whole are still named after him. The city would remain with the name Leningrad all the way until 1991. It was this year that the USSR came to an end and Russia held their first actual elections to vote for their leader. The Soviet era of Russian history had come to an end, and it seems like the nation wanted to remove remnants of this past. And this of course came with changing the name of Leningrad. So what name did they go with? St. Petersburg, or St. Petersburg in English. Yep, after all the time that had passed and the many name changes, the city was back to square one in regards to names, and that's the name it has stuck with to this day, though a sparing thought has to be given to all the sign makers of St. Petersburg, who had to go around the city and change everything every time it went through a name change. While that may be the end of the many name changes the city has gone through, the city has other names too, nicknames. Affectionately, the city is known as just Peter to many, however it also has other nicknames, including Window to the West / Window to Europe due to its location, as well as being known as the City of White Nights due to how northerly the city is. In the summer months, the sun doesn't go across the horizon enough for the city to sink into darkness. These white nights, among other reasons, have made St. Petersburg a tourist destination, as people want to witness these for themselves. And finally, I know what you're all thinking, there's one other city I need to talk about, that being another Russian city that's former name came from a former Soviet leader. The city of Volgograd started life under the name Zalitsin, but in 1925 it was renamed Stalingrad in honor of Big Uncle Joe himself. It was in Stalingrad one of the bloodiest battles of the Second World War took place, and the Motherland Call stands in the city as a reminder of this dark time in human history. However, in 1961, Stalingrad was renamed to Volgograd by then ruler Nikita Khrushchev to help dismantle Stalin's lingering cult of personality, with the name of Volgograd sticking around since, named after the Volga River that the city resides on. However, in more recent years there have been petitions to rename the city Stalingrad once again, and while Putin has said the name change would come down to a referendum, nothing has been put in place. So for now, it seems like Stalingrad will remain a name of the past, much like Petrograd and Leningrad. The Grad cities were suggested by Elizabeth Westner, and thanks to their suggestion, they will now be honoured as Name Explain's patron saint of the Grad cities. Do you have a good idea for somewhere that's name could be covered in a Name Explain video? If so, then please consider donating on Patreon. Just $1 a month helps keep the channel running and earns you a weekly chance to suggest somewhere to be turned into a video, and you too could be a Name Explain Patreon saint. Thank you to all my patrons who support Name Explain on a monthly basis. Name Explain depends on small monthly donations from fans like you to help keep the channel running. Just a small amount of $2 a month helps in a huge way, grants you patron exclusive Name Explain extras, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you.